The Opera Festival at Glyndebourne has been a fixture on the summer social calendar for over 60 years, and it's one of the hottest tickets in the music world. This new Glyndebourne Theatre, in the heart of the English countryside, is just the second opera house built in Britain in the 20th century. The first was knocked down in 1992 to make way for it. The opera lovers were nervous about replacing a rambling but much-loved building with a new, cutting-edge theatre. Today is Judgment Day, as the architects of the new Glyndebourne return to see if their building is a success 8 years after it was completed. The Hopkins are internationally famous. When they won the commission for Glyndebourne, they were a small but accomplished practice who had designed an oil industry research centre, a stand at Lord's cricket ground, and a cutlery factory. In 1990, these modern architects were not the obvious choice for a theatre in deepest Sussex.
I really didn't think we were the people to build an opera house in the countryside. I wasn't really too much into opera.
Suddenly it was all go, do you remember? And we had to detail the building.
Well, they'd raised enough of the money to be confident.
Yes, exactly.
To be confident about that.
And it was a scramble to get on site in time, and then a scramble to finish on time.
The Hopkins decided to create a building of 2 interlocking circles, one circle for the horseshoe-shaped auditorium and one for the backstage area. In the middle is the stage, above it is the tower into which the scenery flies, the fly tower. As Glyndebourne was their first theatre, the Hopkins talked with acoustic experts. They had plenty to learn.
Everything starts from this proscenium arch here. The size of that opening and that height dictate the size of the fly tower, and the audience come right round the sides and form this community together with the people in the stalls, together with the performers on the stage.
Glyndebourne is owned by the Christie family, who've lived there for 170 years and who built this original opera house in 1934. In 1990, it was Sir George Christie who took the decision to commission the Hopkins to design the new house.
You might expect that we, the architects in the thing, would be confident in our solution. I mean, the bravery comes from the Christies, who had something that people were comfortable and sort of worked. George was convinced that he got a one-shot chance of getting this done now in his working lifetime, and he was going to seize that opportunity.
The Hopkins have ahead of them a day of meeting the people who live, work, play and sing at Glyndebourne.
I was approaching with sort of anticipation, you know, sort of pleasurable anticipation. I like driving. These lanes, I think, are fantastic, and it's and what's extraordinary, Glyndebourne, we haven't seen it yet from any distance at all. There are one long view just back there, but basically it's an incredibly sort of secret place from the long view in the Downs. And even when we turn in, as we shall do in a second, you just see the house in the foreground, and above it is the fly tower, which I always enjoy tremendously. Because that's the thing that tells you it's not just a country house. It's not a group of abbey buildings or something. It must be something different to have that strange tower up there, which to me sort of signals Glyndebourne in the landscape and says it's an opera house.
Bravo, signor padrone. Ora incomincio a capire il mistero e a veder schietto tutto il vostro progetto.
Intimacy was one thing, and that you achieved remarkably.
A Londra è vero.
Also, I remember saying to you that I didn't want grandeur. And a particular point I remember saying was that I wanted the whole thing to be designed from the performer's viewpoint and not from the audience's viewpoint. Because if you get a comfortable performance, you get a comfortable audience. And the singers get a feedback from the auditorium, not from the people, but from the building. They get bounce.
Non sarà, Figaro, il dice.
Sir George Christie has recently passed the management of Glyndebourne to his son Gus, who photographed the entire rebuild.
And this is what it used to look like. Sort of classic view, and which hasn't changed that much from that particular vista.
Interesting, the new fly tower isn't very much bigger than that, is it?
No more obtrusive.
Yes.
It's less obtrusive.
It aroused some controversy to begin with. It is a very prominent part of the building. And of course the steel grid at the top was felt to have a slightly industrial taste to it.
This is the old auditorium being destroyed. The rectangular nature of it, which is very different to the horseshoe shape that you came up with.
I mean, in this photograph, it does look very small, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes. The thing that I think we were all pleased with the new house was that the distance from the balconies in the new house were actually slightly closer, a metre or two closer to the stage than that.
The back wall 2 meters closer to the apron of the stage in the new house. But that's because we've grown wider and taller.
Yes.
I remember when the first bricks went down, actually, for the outside wall, and I just thought, this must be in the wrong place. It's far too close to the stage. This is a view from the fly tower, looking down over the auditorium roof with the steel trusses.
Patty was reminding me, you were reminding me a little earlier, that we spent quite some time designing it in brick. In fact, I'm not sure that we didn't actually get planning permission for it in brick, and we then had to persuade the planners that it was going to be, needed to be made of metal and clad in lead instead, so that we could build it quickly. For me, I mean, as you know, this is my first theatre and opera.
I do know that.
I didn't go very often. Of all the architectural spaces one had been involved in, it was the most difficult to imagine, you know. And that's why the models were sort of incredibly helpful. And I remember looking in the back of this, and you looked in the back of it, and we both said, phew, that's all right. You know, and it was, you could tell that it was, it was going to be okay.
I was extremely anxious right from the beginning that we would have an auditorium which was going to be without any sense of plushness and gilt and all that type of thing. I thought it ought to be rather in the style of the old theatre, kind of bucolic and not trying to make a huge, important, rather majestic statement. That it should look wonderful architecturally, but should be basic in terms of material. And the pitch pine, I thought, was an absolute answer to a prayer. But such a warm colour, too.
And I remember, Patty, when you came up with the idea of dark grey seats, and I was thinking, oh my God, that doesn't sound very nice at all.
It would be rather austere.
Rather austere, but my God, it works beautifully with the pine.
I think, with the wisdom of hindsight, I would have painted the bridge, the lighting bridge, at the front of the auditorium. I would have painted that, I think, now I'd paint it grey, so it melded with the ceiling.
I rather agree with that.
It's too black.
It's rather heavy.
It's heavy and rather severe.
Yeah.
It would decrease its presence if it were grey. It wouldn't be quite so...
But it's easy enough to say that now.
Well, you could, of course, do it.
We could do it. We could do it.
Easy.
I know, we could do it.
So I have to say we were jolly lucky. You know, we weren't expecting in the building flat corners to be so near.
That was a close shave.
It could have been an embarrassing... I know what it was. We knew about the distance of the wall and the relation, because that was all worked out properly from surveys and things. But we hadn't allowed for the cornice.
Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
The thing that's thrilling to look at from the stage is the wood, and to know that actually you've got the most wonderful acoustic kind of friend staring right back at you, as well as the appreciative audience, hopefully. But really to have that sort of sense of warmth. I mean, the color and, you know, the material itself is such a friendly thing for a singer to see.
And acoustically, the thing that was also sort of drummed into us, and really by our acoustic consultant, is that the singers have to be able to hear themselves sing. I'd never thought of that before, but of course that, you know, if you can't hear, where are you? You're lost.
That's right. It's interesting. There's just that wonderful that time. Is it 1.8 or there's the 1.8 seconds? Yeah. That reverberation. Yeah. It just gives you enough when you've finished your sound to just monitor where you are and what sort of noise you're making. To the fact that there's wood in front. Yeah. I mean, singers are always dying for wood everywhere, but the fact that it's everywhere here is marvelous.
Even the thickness of the wood was specified.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't known that.
It couldn't just be a veneer.
If we were to compare some modern theatres in major European cities, which I've been privileged to sing in, there with very modern concrete and sophisticated modern materials, they still have to work very hard in order to you know, get angles and materials sympathetic. And what was wonderful was that you've used effectively the oldest, most reliable
It was also to make it quite different from a London theatre. You know, it's a theatre in the countryside.
Sitting in the upper circle at Glyndebourne has been compared to sitting at the top of the mound stand that Hopkins completed for MCC in 1987. This Lord's building is generally thought to be the structure that cemented the partnership's reputation. Until this point, Hopkins had only built on greenfield sites. Here he had to contend with a listed brick arcade, the traditions of cricket, and a discerning audience.
Well, I remember when this was built, and I was one of the sheep, I'm sure, who thought, what an extraordinary looking thing it is, you know, and it's completely out of keeping with the character of the ground and all those things. And yet within, I suppose, 3 or 4 years, we'd all come to realise that it was absolutely right for the ground. Now, how one's taste can change so quickly, I don't know. But I suppose that's what makes a good architect, to change people's taste.
Whenever you build a new stand in a cricket ground, there are a number of minor problems that you encounter. I suppose the two bigger minor problems have been the seats, which are broader than some of the other seats around the ground, which is a great plus, but they are German, and the company that produced them doesn't produce them any longer. So it's been quite difficult, and it will be even more difficult when we need to replace them. The second thing is the canopy, which is quite difficult to clean. And what we wouldn't want, of course, is for it to get very dirty and tatty, and it will have to be replaced again. I don't think that'll be a problem, but it's just something that we need to be aware of. Otherwise, as a stand, it works extremely well.
2 years prior to Lord's, Hopkins built a tent outside Cambridge for Schlumberger Oil Research. This was Hopkins' first use of a canopy structure, which reappeared at Lord's and at Glyndebourne.
It provides a remarkable space, huge unencumbered space, and that's of great benefit in the work bay, where you can have some very large-scale experiments. So in that sense, it's worked very well. I think the downside is that it's such a large space that it actually does divide the building into two. So, for example, it's enshrined in a yearly East versus West cricket match. So there was a lot of speculation as to what the lifetime of the roof was. It survived extremely well. We have it cleaned most years, which is quite a feat. We have to hire a team of mountaineers and wash it down with squeezy mops. It's quite a remarkable building in that it hasn't dated at all. It still has its freshness and its impact. And you don't drive by and think, God, look at that 80s building.
Michael and Patty Hopkins' day at Glyndebourne continues below the bulk of the Fly Tower, on stage with technical director Peter Horn. Horn knows how opera houses work, whether they're in Houston or Hampshire. He has definite requirements from the building, and the Hopkins design doesn't always match expectations.
We haven't been here very often on the stage.
I don't think we've been on the stage since the building's been finished, now I come to think of it.
Actually, standing here, what one doesn't realise is the brick drum, which you can see from the outside, on the inside here is barely visible because it's covered with the acoustic screens.
The thing's conceived of as a big brick enclosure, and it was very important to us that the quality of brickwork backstage was as good as the quality of brickwork running around there.
Now, how would you feel if I went and painted all of it black backstage, like they keep asking me to do, instead of getting rid of the brick so that I...
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, because it would help us backstage enormously to have all that brick painted black, because it would keep the wings darker so that the changes. Did you not want to do a rondel in the roof at one point?
We did. We
must have been primed for that one.
No, I wasn't.
We were really keen to have that open to the sky, and really open to the sky, so that when the audience came in from the garden on our, you know, these nice English summers we get every now and again, you would come in and you would still have the sky above you, and then you would gradually close it down when everybody sat down. And I think Christie's were quite like that. I think they were quite keen on that idea, but I think the technology was just one extra piece of technology you didn't need.
It might not black out when you need it to and things like that.
Well, there's those things. I mean, it's one of the things about the space. I mean, it is a new theatre, and everybody asks what kind of technical equipment do you have, and it's a fairly basic space. It's good space. It's real estate space for us backstage.
And I think George's didn't really want any whistles and bells, nothing that hadn't been really used for donkey's years.
When you decided to do the interlocking circles that you've done,
yes.
Did you have a lot of trouble with the theatre consultants and people on that? Because it's the only thing that I find really quite difficult for us here.
Yes.
Because what we always want is just to have lights just there, and then a little bit of a frame, and then lights right there.
Yeah, I can remember.
And it's the battle that we continuously go through, and I've yet to solve that problem. What I need really, what I would like to have, is be able to put lights sort of right here, in this void. Because the problem with lights going across...
That's no void, that's a chunk of structural steel.
I know, that's what it is. And that's why I wish sort of that was here, so that I could have these lights that are here, and one's there. I can't.
Then you can't, then you wouldn't have your fly tower.
No, it's all a compromise. I mean, there are compromises too.
I forget, it's coming back, I mean, it was endless conversations, and they were very good and sort of long conversations about achieving the balance between the two. Everything stems from this size of the proscenium, doesn't it? Because the side stages, the dimensions there relate to the proscenium width. The height of the fly tower relates to the height of the proscenium, as I recall, almost exactly.
Well, the fly tower is one of the problems, but I mean, it's something we certainly deal with, and ideally we would have liked another 7 meters on it, because the ideal ratio is 3 to 1 for the brass
We were working
arch.
on 2 to 1.
Well, and you did better than 2 to 1, because it's 22 and this is only 9. But the compromise had to be here. You know, do we go further into the ground by 7 meters? And we certainly couldn't sacrifice the Sussex Downs for another 7 meters. It was, you know,
I think there would be a major problem for 7 meters.
Yeah, but it's working.
The Hopkins are renowned for engineering buildings with quality materials. But quality costs, and the prestige commission of Westminster's Portcullis House cost a cool and controversial £250 million.
I think the building is a very ambitious one. It was trying to achieve a lot in one building, and as a result, inevitably there have been teething problems, and some of those have irritated people, and irritated some of the most vocal people in Britain.
There have been occasions when I've wondered, was it really worth cutting down whole forests of oak to panel corridors that simply leave people wandering around slightly lost and not able to find the office they're looking for?
The atrium downstairs, when you arrive, has a sense of presence, a crackle in the air, that there are people moving around, there's a sense of bustle, excitement to the place, which I think is a tremendous statement.
It would be nice to have had the spaces under the cupboards fit a computer monitor or printer. It would have been nice to have walls that you could hang a picture on, and perhaps most important of all, it would have been nice to have a heating system that didn't insist on switching itself on at high temperature just as the sun comes out. But I like the skeleton of the building coming through. I think it looks great. I like the engineering quality.
The test of a building is over time, and I don't think we should have a fashion statement. I think we should have something that in 30, 40 years' time, people still say, well, that looks reasonably contemporary, that looks as if it belongs on the site.
Underneath the MP's offices lurks Hopkins' Westminster Underground Station. This 7-storey substructure is the route from which the oak of Portcullis House sprouts. The Hopkins partnership knows how to show a polite face to the public above ground, yet secrete its love of gritty high-tech underground. Whether it's political drama at Westminster or high theatre in Sussex, the Hopkins are adept at making a statement. And the big statement at Glyndebourne is the massive brick drum which envelops the entire building, with ambulatories and dressing rooms on the outer shell.
So it's 3:30 in the afternoon. The audience are beginning to arrive for the evening's performance. So we're now coming under the covered way and into the long bar, which is the main meeting area for the audience.
This is one of my favourite spaces, actually. There are two things I enjoy about it. One is this sort of summer quality, which the membrane imparts, I think, on it. And the other is the way that the bar moves across in response to this curve.
It is. I mean, it's a wonderful thing about the building is that the audience can come, they come straight out of their seats in the auditorium, onto the terraces and straight out into the garden, which is a huge improvement.
And this sort of quality of fresh air that...
yes, we get plenty of that in the autumn.
It's a little bit school-like, but I enjoy it.
Yes.
As Michael Hopkins sees how the front of house works, Patty hears some mixed feelings from behind the scenes.
Some theatres you have to share dressing rooms with other principals.
Yeah.
And, you know, and some people want their own space before a show. Some people like to have company and sit and chat.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, at least here you have the choice. I tend to come in about an hour and a half before a performance. I like my dressing room. Because sometimes you're sitting in a cellar somewhere and you haven't got windows. You see no one here. You're a part of...
Well, that was very much part of our design, actually, was to wrap the dressing rooms and the workrooms and all the places where people lived and worked around the outside of the...
Especially because we're here so much, it's so lovely to have natural light.
You find it a little bit tight in here? Or?
Yes, it's mainly because...
It's mainly for Sarah.
Yes, because I need to really work from the front.
And I noticed you're sort of sitting off-centre in order for you to have space. I have to say, when we were being briefed, we didn't... That wasn't part of it. I mean, because it's quite obvious looking here now that one could have put you central, and the light central, and you'd have had space either side, because presumably you come around this side and work from this side.
Well, mainly makeup sort of is mainly from the right side. We're often two people working on an artist at the same time. We may have wigs and sometimes costume, putting on some gloves if it's a quick change. So there are three of us working on you at one time, so it's quite helpful to have you in the middle, really.
You could easily alter it, I think.
Yes. I mean, you don't really need these either.
No, well, those were lock-ups for people. You could put your sort of personal possessions, but
you could put a smaller one and put it in the corner.
Yes, but they're not necessary. So take this away and just have the whole width, and position the lights more centrally.
So coming up now onto the upper circle terrace, as you can see, people are beginning to set out their picnics. This is used even if it's a beautiful day.
Yes.
People will picnic up here during the long interval because they want to sit comfortably.
We originally had these open at one time, open to the sky.
They were covered over.
Very wisely too.
They're quite difficult to clean. We manage it. It's quite a feat.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
As today's performance gets closer, Michael and Patty Hopkins are able to reflect on how their design works on a daily basis. The house now accommodates 1,200 people, yet tickets are still scarce, even though there are now 400 more seats. That is probably the most telling verdict on the Hopkins design.
Tu le promets, Carmen.
7 days after returning to Glyndebourne, the Hopkins reflect on lessons learnt during their visit, with 2 members of the practice who worked on the original design.
What we certainly weren't told about the dressing rooms is that they should be handed so that the makeup artist is always to the right of the performer. And of course, because our dressing rooms face each other, one of them is always the wrong way around. And of course, it's been an incredibly simple thing to
have done that.
In fact, they really should sit in the middle, because sometimes very complicated makeup, they have 2 people.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, it's something we should pursue.
I thought you sorted it out while you were there.
One just needs to remove that storage thing, which is much too big, and push them into the middle. You'd have to rearrange the lighting, but it's very simple. And we'll make sure they do it this winter, actually. So
that's interesting, because they've never mentioned that.
I know, I found it rather odd.
I don't remember it being part of the brief. The outside terraces were for picnics. I think that's something that grew out of. It grew
through necessity, I think.
The galleries. Yeah, the galleries.
Originally, those areas were also open as well. I think it shows it on the model. They were open, and we actually put glass in, didn't we, fairly quickly? Which, in terms of the sort of materials, because we spent a lot of time, didn't we, getting the brick right and things like that. When you went back there, did you still feel that it was?
It was looking absolutely pristine, actually. The bricks and the concrete looked virtually as the day they were laid.
Yeah. I started to explain to him sort of the idea that we'd had about the brick container running all the way around and running round the backstage, and always keeping the base quality of construction up backstage, so that the brickwork was visible backstage as well as it was front stage, and that was part of the architectural idea. And he said, well, actually, I'd rather paint it black. So I said, over my dead body.
Returning to Glyndebourne for Michael and Patty Hopkins has been a reassuring experience. The Hopkins have made a virtue of mixing high-tech with tradition. Whilst their buildings retain a structural honesty that might alienate other architects from the general public, they somehow manage to garner an enthusiastic following, and they seem particularly favoured by establishment clients. And as the wraps come off Hopkins' newest building in the City of London, the clients are hoping that this too will stand the test of time. Maybe in 10 years the architects could return here, and maybe they might even enjoy the experience.
It's a great joy to go back there, and a little bit of imposition having to make a film at the same time, but it did give us a sort of whole day there, seeing the whole thing at work again. The trouble is, I think at Glyndebourne it's sort of slightly too easy to be self-satisfied, you know, because it does work and a lot of people enjoy it. So it's not necessarily terribly good for us.